Yojong, or I hope you're doing well if your Hmong is as good as mine. I wanted to make this first video talking about the process of my dragon puppets. And this is because I think it's one of the most obvious points of my dance. And I think I've gotten a few questions already during performances and even just during like chatting about it, about how long does it take me to make my dragons? What do I use? What's the process? Why do I do this instead of that? So, just kind of everyone wanted to figure out what goes into being a dragon. People want to figure that out, and I wanted to kind of just show the process of that, instead of me sitting here and waiting until I can like sit somebody down and then go back and forth. I think it'd be nice just to tell you right now. And so usually I start out my dragons with just kind of a concept, or just kind of, an idea, a little bit of inspiration. I usually take my inspiration from like books I read, like books, different folktales I hear, whether that's like online or just like asking around and then hearing like a folktale or something like that, or just like a story someone has. I usually just take from that. And for example, I have books here actually kind of showing, like, I'll probably read this to you guys sometime, but yeah, like these books, these I got last year at the Hmong New Year Festival in Minneapolis. And so just like, these different types of books that I've been able to read. And so by just being able to have those things around me, I'm able to kind of discern what I want and what I don't want in a story. And along with that concept, it plays along to like what performances and like what events am I going to that year, like multicultural events and like the Hmong New Year here on campus. And so I try to figure out what would be most interesting there too. And so just before going too deep into it, with the idea of concept of like the dragon, the way that I come up with like a specific dragon is actually kind of recommendation based. For now, it'll probably be a bit more specified later on. Like for the two big dragons I have, like kind of going on into this, like the green one and this blue one that you're seeing up here, actually were concept and ideas and like prompting from like audience members, young audience members. With that first dragon, his name is Hyung, by the way, if you're so curious and inclined, which means bamboo in Hmong. I came up with Hyung because when I was performing at the 2024 Hmong New Year here on campus, I was dancing with my first prototype dragon named Blay. And at the end, when I was like just walking around saying hi to people, I was talking with this little girl, and I was chatting with her and asking how she liked the dance. And then later on I asked, so what kind of dragons do you want to see? Do you want a color? Do you want to see anything like that? And she was a little shy, but then eventually she told me, I want to see a green dragon. And so then I decided, well, then I'll make a green dragon. And then this one I'm making right now, this blue dragon, I made it because earlier in May, I'm pretty sure, when I was performing at an elementary school, there was a little boy who was watching me dance, and then at the end of one of the dances, he came up to me with a piece of paper with like a dragon drawn on it, and he was like, I really like your dance. Here's a dragon for you. I like the blue dragon, or I want a blue dragon. And I'm like, okay, you can get a blue dragon. So yeah, I'm making a blue dragon now. And it's nice because hearing all these different folk tales about Hmong dragons, you find that they kind of come in all different kind of like colors, shapes. They're usually pretty big, but sometimes sizes too. And I've heard stories of like purple dragons, blue dragons, white dragons, green dragons. They come in all different colors. And so it gives me a lot of leeway to just play with the idea of how they look. Well, because this year is kind of the second year officially that I'm really doing dragon dance as like performances. I really hope that when the new year comes and next May on 2025, I can come back with those green and blue dragons, and maybe those kids can see. And I even if they don't really remember, or even if I don't see them, then at least I'll know, and maybe one day they'll know too. Who knows? I just it's nice. And in the future, if there are any like comments or any like requests to see a certain dragon, I'd be more than happy to take them. I love being able to play with colors like this. This is so fun. And then with those concepts of events, stories, then it's also about what do I want to show, and what's possible for me. Like I know that I'm not a gymnast, so I can't be doing like too many flips, and I know that I'm not a fully professionally trained dancer, so I can't be doing anything too crazy. And so it's kind of figuring out, where do my boundaries lie, and how do they lie within those concepts, and how does that concept lie within the events I'm going to be performing at. And so that's kind of how the idea of a concept starts, like how just brainstorming and like kind of contextualizing everything that has to go into a performance that year, or into a performance overall. Like if there's an actual like big event that I'm going to be preparing for, then that's kind of what I have to be thinking about. Like a big festival or something like that. And then it kind of moves on to sketching, which is what you probably saw in the reels, or what you'll see now as I put it up on screen. And so when sketching, with this one, you can kind of see that I started out with the head and like the big function of the head, because in my dragon puppets, there's two different parts really. If you like break it down, there's the head and then the body. And those are two separate parts because those are the big parts that I'm gonna be playing with. So with the head, it's all about being very sturdy and being able to hold its place and hold itself as its own puppet, essentially. So I started out with the head, and kind of drawing on inspiration of like Southeast dragons, is nice. And I think it adds a bit more distinction between what I do and Chinese dragon dancing that you might mistake me for, or that you might be more familiar with. And so just having that kind of distinction and just drawing from my own heritage of where my people come from is I think it's nice. And so yeah, I start out with the head, and with that I draw inspiration from Thai dragons by using like the different style of horns, because if you look at Thai dragons, for example, you can see they're a bit more serpentine. It looks much more like a sea serpent, or like a snake, just in general, like a horned snake. And so kind of drawing on that, I add a bit more horns and like antlers towards the nose a bit more, and then try to angle the face so that it looks a bit more serpentine and not as much as like a Southeast dragon. And then by doing that, I can kind of start figuring out, how do I want the hard structure to look. Breaking down the head, there's the hard structure, the soft structure, the paint, and then decorations. So with the hard structure, it's all about the wood base, like kind of like a skeleton, like the skeleton of a skull is kind of figuring out, what do I need to like be sturdy and be still, and how does that play into security, and how does that play into the structure of the overall dragon. And so in here you can kind of see me figuring out the different panels I want, and kind of like how the two parts of like the jaw and then like the top skull of the skull will kind of work together, and how does that have to look. And you may or may not notice, but like the top part is, instead of the mandible, the jaw, the area, the top part is much more heavy and much more decorated in a sense, because that's the part that allows me the most space to decorate. And usually with the bottom, with the mandible, I will use that as a bit of like a prop more. And like in the past, I've used that to like make the mouth move up and down, up and down. But with the top part, that's what I kind of have to really focus on, of what kind of like frills do I want, because that's how you connect the frills to the back. How does that connect to the nose? And if I do add any horns to the nose, like the bridge or anything like that, how does that play into the overall structure? Of like being able, what parts do I want it to move, and how do I want it to move? What can I decorate with? What can I not decorate with? What are the boundaries that I can push within the structure of that? and how does that structure play into the dances, like when I'm spinning, when I'm tossing it, and if it does hit the floor during practice, how will that affect the dragon's head, you know? And then after the kind of the base structure concept and like kind of figuring out what I want for like wood structures, like the hard structure, then I can go into soft structure, which is like fabricing, paint, and like even clay work, because the teeth and the eyes are usually made out of clay, or sometimes paper mache if I really feel confident, but usually clay. And so I used the soft structures to kind of figure out how do I want like the skin, like how do I want the skin to look? Do I want it to fold in certain places? With this particular dragon, because I want like tusk at the very back, you're going to be seeing a bit of folding near like the back tusk of it, kind of like pulling its jostles up. I think that's what it's called, kind of like how a dog or like a cat would. And so you can see I try to focus on like how that pulls up, and then along with that too, with the soft structure, because you're going to be seeing some of the gums, that kind of adds another factor of like how does this kind of fabric play along with each other. With the soft structure, then it's going to be like how does the fabric fold over the horns, and how does that fold over the frills, and then how does that like skin attached to the wood fan out into like the frills at the top of the head, like those little no, they're not little, but like the big ring of like fins, kind of. How does that play going on from just that of like draping and structuring with the quote unquote skin? Then you can go on to kind of the more fun stuff, which is like the paint and like the decorations. And so with paint, this part's fun for me because it's a lot like putting makeup on the dragon, where you get to figure out how do you accentuate part of the eyes or like parts of the features that you want to show, and then how do you kind of create a comprehensive piece of art on that face, and then you kind of figure out how does that play with the body. So with this dragon, you can see that I really focused on the eyes, kind of giving it that the winged eyeliner. I love winged eyeliner. And then you can see how I like put a bit more emphasis around the mouth and where like the tusks are gonna be showing, because I really want to draw attention to that, because that's a new feature that I'm trying to work on. And so you can see that kind of like color choice of like making the contrast against the navy blue, and like also like the leaves kind of like frilling out like that to kind of really show it. And additionally with that, you can see like where I put like jewelry on it, or like the silver and like little pearls on the nose, kind of again trying to create a comprehensive piece of art just on that head alone. And so with that, it really helps just with that head, kind of those basic structures and ideas, kind of slowly build up what I need and what I want from that dragon and the concept of that. Moving on to like the body of the dragon, it's a bit of a simpler process for me at least, because Hmong dragons are said to be like serpentine, like a lot of Asian dragons, and so like I don't have to really add wings or anything like that. Moreover, because the body like physically is going to be like being tossed around, spun, and like curled around, being curled in the air and like twisted, I can't really have it being too complicated at the moment. Maybe in the future I'll come up with something better, but for the time being it can't be too complicated, because if it is, then it can't move properly and it's much more likely to break or be damaged. And so the body is a bit easier to handle, I'd say. Now that I have the process of figuring out the spine and ribcage column, and like how the tail functions, the heart structure of it is a bit more simplistic and can be applied to all the dragons that I make. And I chose that structure because when looking at how snakes moved, I was able to kind of look into the skeletal structure of seeing like how the tendons and like how the spine kind of work together to create that motion of like fluidity, and how like slithering like physically works. And so like seeing that and like studying it really helped me to kind of break it down into like these segmented parts of like, you know, the different rib cages, and then like two like strings kind of acting as like a major tendons. And then by using that structure and like draping it with the fabric, it creates this really nice illusion of like a slithering snake. And the basic structure itself of like the hard structure is that wooden pole and then a wooden arch to kind of act as like a semi-spine. And so by using that half circle, you can have a really nice like dome shape, but then also you have the stability of the wooden pole right there, and then connect it to those half arch, so that when you lay it down or when it's like being tossed up and around, then like the rib cage, like the arched rib cage, does not move or like shift. And so by having those two different parts, it kind of creates a nice set of ribs. And then when you kind of segment it all together with the string, then it creates a snake, like a very rudimentary basic snake skeletal structure. And then by using that, you can kind of get the dragon puppet that I make. And then along with that too, towards the end where the tail is, the rib cages get smaller and smaller and smaller, as a tail would, but then like kind of towards the quarter point of where the tail is, you kind of have to stop making those hard structures and just leaving it up to the string and to the fabric to create that very like fluid and soft motion, so that when it goes up or like when it gets whipped, it can go down very fluid and like very quickly, instead of like breaking and like going kind of like in a janky motion down. And with that, it saves you rib cages, because you don't have to make as many and they won't break. And then also, because it is just plain fabric and string, it creates a very nice crack and a nice whip. That's how I create that overall fluidness in the puppet, regarding the body, because the head and like the first quarter of the puppet will be very kind of built to support the head and like the rest of the body. And then like the middle part is all about fluidity and all about being able to kind of provide semi-stability, but then also being able to like curl and move either which way. And then kind of towards the end, that's when it's purely like mobility and being able to like whip it up and down and like curl around you and flick back and forth wherever which way, doesn't matter up or down or side. So that's kind of the overall look of a puppet, or like the overall idea of a puppet. And then when decorating the body, you kind of get a bit of a cheat, or at least for me, I get a bit of a cheat, because I can take whatever idea I had going for the head, and then just kind of apply that a little bit to the body and how I'd want that to look. Because with the head, as you can see here, it's all about playing with like that navy blue, that contrast, and then like the frills at the end of it. And then like these kind of like leading lines leading towards like the nose, kind of where it's gonna be pushing and like where it's gonna be like flowing most of the time. And then when applied to the body, I decided that I wanted it to still have that really long fin going down the center, like how I did my green dragon, because I found it's a very striking visual and it's very nice to have, especially when like in a pinwheel. And then along with that pinwheel, I decided that I wanted like frills going down the side of the body this time around, so that when I do spin it or when it does go like in a circle, then it actually creates a pinwheel, or at least my best attempt at one. And then towards the top, I wanted to keep the idea of a river dragon with like glitter and like pearls, kind of helping to trace down as like a gradient to kind of really add a bit more depth, And so after that kind of basic breakdown of an overall dragon puppet, I'll go a little bit deeper into the specific puppet of like what struggles I had with this one and the ideas I had surrounding this particular dragon in general. So as I mentioned before, this dragon I had, I decided to make it blue because, one of the kids I performed for wanted a blue dragon, and that's the first recommendation I got. And so I figured if people want a blue dragon, or if a little boy wants a blue dragon, I can make a blue dragon. And so I wanted to make it blue because I don't have a blue dragon yet. And then along with making it blue, I wanted a silver dragon, and I really wanted to make something other than a gold accented dragon because I already have two of those and I don't really feel like being redundant. And so, a silver dragon, and silver and blue is already kind of like a nice combo color. And so I figured it wouldn't be too bad, which is why I thought I thought it wasn't going to be too bad until I started drawing and I started like playing with color. And you can kind of see here where I kept flipping back and forth, where I kept struggling with the idea of like a very vibrant and very like colorful dragon while also making it blue and silver, because personally I'm much more used to playing with like primary colors and with using gold and like using yellow as like a bold color in a lot of my drawings and a lot of my dragons. And so when I was faced with like the issue of you can't really have a lot of gold clashing with the silver, yeah, so for a little bit I had a bit of a struggle figuring out how to just not rely on my primary colors and not rely on my strengths and like color concept. And that's when I kind of found this palette of using you know, the contrasting colors of like orange and blue to kind of play with that. And then I found that by using that and like kind of cheating just a little bit by like using this kind of orangey yellow, then I could add that look of boldness without it actually being yellow or gold. And so that's kind of what I would decide to go with, of like using contrasting colors instead of primary colors. And then by adding like bits of like silver and like even some of the white from the pearls I plan on using, I was kind of able to kind of create a comprehensive piece. Yeah, that's kind of what I would decide to go with for color. And then along with this dragon too, one thing that I'm going to have to really consider and really like kind of play with and work with is the use of bigger jewelry and two sets of fins, or like two different kinds of fins being used, and then also like more chains, and also the tusk on the dragons, because I wanted to bring out that kind of inspiration that I got from Thai dragons. And if I play with that, then I'm going to have to really consider how heavy do I make these teeth and what materials do I have to use if I'm going to be playing with big teeth like that. And along with, there's going to be a set towards the back, and if there's going to be a set all around the entire mouth, and if the back is already going to be really heavy with like extra frills, decoration, and fins, I'm going to have to really think about how do I do that so it doesn't completely like throw off my balance during dances, or it doesn't completely throw off the balance and like flow of the entire dragon. Because I should have mentioned this earlier, but like if one part of the dragon is too heavy, or if like a certain aspect of the dragon, whether it's the body or the head, is too heavy or too light, then the entire way that I throw and like I work with the dragon is different from puppet to puppet. And to kind of like reduce that so that my dances are consistent, I kind of have to really consider, if I build this dragon, how heavy or how light can I make it be, and how do I balance it out with the rest of the body. And so the idea of like big tusk and like a lot of added stuff around the face, I'm gonna have to really think about that. And then moreover, with like the fins, actually this will be a little fun sneak peek, because you can see here in the sketch where like I put like a little baby blueprint here, like where the red strings are, and like where these kind of like dots, or like the blue dotted lines, that's where I'm planning on adding like strings to the fins. And what I'm planning on doing there is like kind of working out a system where when I push it, or when I like pause and like reel the head back really quickly, then like that string and like the mechanisms I use to create it will like fan out like those dinosaurs from Jurassic Park. And it'll fan out like that, so that you can see moving in and out in real time. And then once I pull it forward again, then the momentum from that will push the fins back in place. And so I really wanted to play with that idea. And along with that too, on the top of the head, on like that kind of pterodactyl crown, I plan on adding like one or two like string points attached down into a single string, and then attaching that single string down to the pole where my hand would be. And so that when I drag my hand down, I can pull down that crown, so it like kind of like folds back like a pair of ears, kind of. And so there's gonna be a bit more of an attempt to be playing with how I work with the fins. And that's because with this particular dragon, I don't think the use of like the jaw is gonna be too possible. It's not gonna be too possible to like move the jaw up and down because of how much is around the mouth and around the face. So in order to kind of still have that use of expression and that kind of like fun with the dragon of like mechanics, then I'm gonna be playing with the fins a bit more. And then because I do have that focus on the fins, I wanted to add a bit of an accent color to really bring that out, which is why you see like this kind of greenish fin here, which is I plan on it being like a more like shiny opalescent color, so it really helps to just pop against the silver. And I decided to make it kind of green because I figured that it'd be a contrast overall to the rest of the dragon. because it won't be clashing and like competing with the orange, because the orange itself would be showing like the eyes and the face and like the parts of the body, and then it would stand on its own. And yeah, that kind of whole idea just kind of translates to the entire rest of the puppet when I was making it too, of like with these different ideas in mind of like basic hard structure, basic soft structure, the idea of a blue silver dragon for the new year, and then also like how do I build this dragon and how am I going to be dancing with it. Like having all those things in mind, I kind of just kept applying it to the dragon as I kept going, and then once I had that idea on like the head, I can kind of really apply it to the rest of the body. And then I guess as a little extra added note, I decided to make the tail a bit more elaborate this time around, because I found that it's very fun to like have the tail whip and like make a very loud crack as like an added bonus of expression and in my dance. And so you can see here I added more like tasseling and more like things surrounding us, so you can kind of bring a bit more attention to the tail, but not too much to where it detracts from the entire body. And yeah, I think that's kind of the most of it for like just the puppet itself. There's tons more that I can and will probably go into of like how do I build it, how do I get the materials, and blah 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 back and forth, and then how do I like practice with a new dragon and like how do I kind of break into it. But for now, this is just what I have for like sketching and concept of like my ideas surrounding a dragon, and then what am I thinking when I draw the dragon itself, and like play with the idea of it. So yeah, I think that'll be it for now, and until then, I hope this is a good first video for you guys, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day. So yeah, Shinji, or if not, see you around.